Most people in eastern Pennsylvania would recognize where I am right now. I'm in front of a big abandoned steel factory, and this factory is made out of metal. However, I have this tiny little Lego piece in my hand, but what does this factory and this Lego piece have in common? Well, in reality, not much, except for me, I saw a challenge, and this is my attempt at doing something that's never been done before. I'm going to build a scale model of this factory where I'm at right now, and this is my documentary on that process. My name is Brad, and this is Bethlehem Steel recreated in Lego. So what's the actual plan here? How did all of this come about? Well, I've lived in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania my entire life. Bethlehem Steel has always been a part of my life. I've seen it become what it is today with the steel stacks and just pretty much transforming this era of history. And I have an immense love for Lego, and I want to be able to kind of showcase something that can bring about some awareness to something that's in my little town here. So in order to accomplish this goal, it's going to take a lot of planning, and that's really why I want to go ahead and document everything, because then that way I can look back upon what I've done and see all of the progress that I've made, as well as share it with people that, you know, not only do they like Lego, but they also enjoy history. And of course, this is something that's never been done before. The only attempts I've seen at something like this was a small micro model, as well as the Martin Tower, which was the headquarters of this place back in the day. Each video in this process is going to showcase building a different part of Bethlehem Steel. And so of course this is kind of the introduction video to the project, but coming up I'm going to show you what I'm going to be building first in order to really gauge the scale of this thing, because right now I don't know how big this is all going to be. I've done some simple planning on some paper, as well as played around with some of my own bricks, and I have an idea. I know it's going to be big, but I don't know exactly, and that's why I need to start with something that I can really gauge the scale off of, because with how massive Bethlehem Steel is, it's hard to gauge the height as well as the area, so I need to start with something that I know. Walking along the Hoover Mason trestle really brings you up close to the detail as well as how big of a plant this actually is. Now, of course, I mentioned that it's hard to measure the scale of this and kind of decide how big I want stuff to be. So I need a point of reference, and for me, I think the easiest point of reference is actually over in front of Bethlehem Steel, and that's going to be the Flywheel down there. Rather than go after a big project like this and try and do something as complicated as all of this right at the first go, I don't think that's the best approach to this. So I really want to make sure that I plan everything out, and the best way to plan is to break everything up into pieces, especially when dealing with a complex task like this. So like I said before, we are going to start with making the Bethlehem Steel Flywheel, which is on display down on the ground over there. And basically what that was it was a blower motor to go ahead and blow hot air into the furnaces in order to melt the materials to make the steel. And so we're gonna go check that out down there and talk a little bit more about that. Just like all of my other previous Lego creations, I want this to be 100% Lego. The only problem with that is because of how old Bethlehem Steel is, a lot of it has rusted, and unfortunately Lego doesn't really make a rust-colored brick. So with that said, I am going to have to sacrifice somewhat on the colors, and so what I'm thinking for the entire thing is to do a light gray, the light bluish gray. There's a lot of availability for pieces in that color. As well, I feel it's pretty close to the original color that this would have been when it was in full operation, or at least when it was new. There are other places that I am going to have to sacrifice on color. So I made it over to the Flywheel here, and you can see that's kind of like a dark tan color. Now what I'm thinking for this big old flywheel right here is to use Technic gear or circle gear pieces. And unfortunately those only come in black or yellow. I don't really want to use yellow just because I think it will look a little bit off. So what I'm thinking for that is to just go ahead and use black, and then go with the theme of the light gray for the actual motor part over here. I think that will look really great. It's not going to be exact, but unfortunately that's just how Lego is. So let's talk a little bit about scaling here. So this is pretty big. In my opinion, it's about a block, or it's about the width of a regular town building. I don't know exactly how big it is, however it is definitely a lot taller than me. This piece right there is about my height. I'm about as tall as the fence. So what I'm thinking here for this is to go ahead and start off with a 32 by 32 base plate and build this entire thing on top of that. When we were up on top of the trestle there, you could see that it was mostly a square. So following along with that, I think I'll be able to gauge pretty good how big the rest of the model is going to be. However, it's not all going to be guessing. I'm going to use a lot of technology tools, mainly Google Earth. Thankfully, Bethlehem Steel is 3D mapped inside of Google Earth. So I'm able to measure how tall as well as the area of the actual structure, and therefore I can get a pretty close estimate of how big this would be based off of a scaling such as minifigure. As I'm walking around here, you might be noticing that this is more of a complex of buildings to go along with the steel factory, or the old steel factory. So that's what this has become over the years. When I first lived here, it was just an abandoned steel factory in the middle of a field. However, there's been development on all of this, and I'm not sure yet if I want to include everything here. I definitely want to include the surrounding area where that flywheel is, but stuff such as the blower house here, you can see the flywheel, or an original flywheel actually poking out behind this fence right here. This whole building is filled with them. I'm not sure that I'm going to include all of that, at least not yet. I want to get the main feature done, which of course is the steel mill behind me, and then I can go ahead and decide about the rest of that. All in all, I don't think this is going to be easy, not in the least bit. Lego is notoriously known for being boxy, and this is anything but. However, like I said in the intro, I am up for the challenge, and this is something that's never been done before, and something that I think I can really bring awareness to this area if this is done correctly and done to how I envision it in my head right now. Altogether, I know that I can create an incredible model of this old mill. However, it will most likely take some time. So for right now, I'm thinking that I'll probably be able to get out a video every 1 to 2 weeks. It's dependent on a lot of stuff about how much time I have to build during the week. With that said, I think this will be an incredible project to follow, and I'm really hoping to really bring some awareness to this area as this project gains popularity, and hopefully it will be on displays at shows once it is all done and completed. So if you're interested in this, not either for the Lego or for the history of building something like this, go ahead and subscribe and look for the next video. Thank you.